This is the story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old leader of Burkina Faso. He's the man who, in just a few years, has shaken up a century of foreign relations, demanded a bigger piece of the pie from his country's most precious resources, and stared down some of the most powerful nations on earth. To millions, he's a revolutionary hero, picking up the torch of past leaders like Thomas Sankara and becoming a new voice for a sovereign Africa. But the big question remains: can he survive the consequences?
To understand Ibrahim Traoré, you first have to understand the country he took over. Burkina Faso is a landlocked nation in the heart of West Africa, bursting with potential but trapped in a vicious cycle. First, there's the crushing poverty, a reality made even harder to swallow by the fact that Burkina Faso is one of Africa's top gold producers. For years, that gold was mined by foreign corporations, flown to Europe for refining, and sold on global markets, with the nation itself seeing just a fraction of the profits. This economic setup, a remnant of colonial-era deals, kept the country dependent on foreign aid and loans that often came with strings attached, influencing domestic policy and keeping the nation tied to Western interests. Then, there's the devastating security crisis. For years, jihadist insurgencies have torn through the Sahel, leaving huge parts of Burkina Faso lawless. Terrorist groups tied to ISIS and Al-Qaeda have waged a brutal campaign of violence, killing thousands and forcing over 2 million people from their homes. The government in the capital, Ouagadougou, was losing its grip. To fight back, Burkina Faso had leaned on its former colonial ruler, France, whose troops were stationed there on a counter-terrorism mission. And yet, despite the French military presence, the security situation only got worse. A deep sense of frustration and betrayal began to simmer among the Burkina people and within their own army. Many felt the foreign powers there to help were either ineffective or, as some whispered, were letting the chaos continue to maintain their influence. On the night of September 30th, 2022, that simmering frustration finally boiled over. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, then a little-known artillery officer, led a coup d'etat, the country's second in just 8 months. He and his fellow junior officers removed the ruling military junta, arguing it had failed to stop the insurgency and had grown too close to foreign powers. At just 34, Traoré became the world's youngest head of state. To the west, it might have looked like just another military takeover in a volatile region. But on the streets of Ouagadougou, it felt different. It was seen not as a power grab, but as a reclamation. Traoré didn't just seize the presidential palace. He started telling a different story. He spoke a language that connected with his people and with millions across the continent. The language of sovereignty, dignity, and self-reliance. He wasn't just another soldier. He was the face of a generation demanding a change. Traoré didn't waste any time. His first move was a big one, aimed right at the old colonial power structure. In early 2023, he ordered all French troops to leave Burkina Faso, ending a long-standing military agreement. He then expelled the French ambassador and suspended French state-funded media outlets like France 24 and RFI, accusing them of pushing a neo-colonial agenda. These weren't just symbolic moves. They were a complete reset of Burkina Faso's foreign policy. Traoré announced that his country would look for win-win partnerships and other horizons. Those new horizons appeared quickly. He strengthened ties with Russia, securing military support to fight the insurgency, and with Turkey for military hardware. He then turned to his neighbors, forming the Alliance of Sahel States, EASA, with the military-led governments of Mali and Niger. This mutual defense pact was a clear rejection of the Western-aligned regional bloc. ECOWAS, and a bold statement that problems in the Sahel would be met with solutions from the Sahel. But Traoré's revolution wasn't just about soldiers and diplomats. He knew that real sovereignty starts with economic independence. His next target was the nation's gold. What we're witnessing is a fundamental challenge to the way the world works. A young leader is telling global powers that the rules have changed. If you believe Africa is rising and that this story needs to be told, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and share this video. Your support helps us bring these critical narratives to light. For years, Burkina Faso's raw gold was shipped off to be refined in Europe. The country sold a raw ingredient, while the real value was added thousands of miles away. In a move that sent tremors through the global mining industry, his government began to assert more control. In late 2024, after a commercial dispute between mining companies, the state acquired the Boungou and Wagnian gold mines. While not a full-scale nationalization of the entire sector, the government also passed a new mining code, increasing the state's automatic share in new projects from 10% to 15%. But he didn't stop there. He launched one of the most ambitious projects in the nation's history, the construction of Burkina Faso's first-ever national gold refinery. With a goal of processing up to 150 tons a year, this facility is designed to let the country process its own gold, capture its full value, and sell it on its own terms. The message was crystal clear. The days of just exporting raw wealth are over. To further break from old dependencies, Traore's government has also pivoted from taking on new loans from institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, vowing to fund its own development. With this focus on financial autonomy, Traore's government has launched a series of massive infrastructure projects. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being poured into building a new international airport and upgrading roads to connect rural areas to cities, which boosts trade and national unity. Recognizing that a nation can't be sovereign if it can't feed itself, he launched the agro-pastoral offensive, a huge investment in modernizing agriculture with new equipment irrigation to achieve food security. New processing plants for local crops like tomatoes are also being built to add value and create jobs. These aren't just projects. They're the building blocks of a new national identity, one defined by self-sufficiency. However, Traore's path is loaded with risk. The security crisis remains dire. While the army has reported some success, jihadist groups continue to carry out deadly attacks, and his government controls only about half the country's territory. Meanwhile, government forces have been accused of serious human rights abuses. In their fight against the insurgency, his defiance has also made him a target. He has publicly spoken about surviving multiple coup and assassination attempts. Leaders who challenge the global order, especially those sitting on vast mineral wealth, have historically faced destabilization and sanctions. The West watches his pivot to Russia and his resource nationalism with deep suspicion. Western media often portrays him as just another military strongman, pointing to the delay of elections and a crackdown on dissent. The question hanging over Burkina Faso is whether this revolution can last. Can Traore deliver the security and prosperity he's promised before his enemies, both inside and outside the country, close in on him? Is he building a truly independent nation, or is he leading his country toward more isolation and conflict? The story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré is bigger than just one man or one country. It's a flashpoint in a much larger, continent-wide struggle. It represents a new wave of African leaders who are openly rejecting the post-colonial playbook and demanding a seat at the table, not as dependents, but as equals. His supporters see a patriot, a liberator who is finally claiming what rightfully belongs to his people. His detractors see a reckless authoritarian who is trading one foreign power for another and risking the stability of an entire region. The truth is likely far more complex, but one thing is certain: he has torn up the old script. What gets written next won't just decide the future of Burkina Faso. It could signal the future of Africa itself. Is Captain Ibrahim Traoré a hero forging a new path for Africa? Or is he a dangerous populist on a perilous road? The world is watching, holding its breath, as the man who is trying to kick foreign powers out of his corner of Africa fights to build a future on his own terms.